Okay, we are ready to go for part 2 on the episode where I discuss what I think it would be a future economy. Uh, After where I left off in part 1, the second topic that I discussed was yesterday about the political system or new democratic system. Two main points there is we need to stop 3 points. First, we need to start using modern mathematical tools in order to better have our votes be better representative of reality compared to right now, with all the gerrymandering and all those things. Second point is we need to stop being limited by thoughts or limitations that only existed in the past and that are no longer true today. So why are we only voting as if geography is the only thing that matters in our world? We need to stop voting on location and start voting on issues. That way you can separate out the parties, and you can be a social liberal but fiscal conservative, and that's a tenable position, as opposed to right now where you kind of have to pick a party, and it's the one that's closer to what you think, but there are no parties that will match always everything that you think. The only way to do that is to vote on issues as opposed to voting by location. What was the other thing about government, or was that only two things? Anyway, we need to start voting again, thinking about what's best for hopefully everyone as opposed to just ourselves, because if we only vote for ourselves, anyway, I won't repeat all the arguments I did yesterday, because I want to get to the meat of this topic, which is the future economic system. So I'll start right away by kind of the ideal, because that's the point that I really want to get across. Girls, it's disgusting here. Let's move on. Like, they have to stop in the one spot that's completely melted to make sure that they get fully muddy. Yeah. Anyway, so starting with the ideal political system, economical system, the gates that need to be reached, as I had mentioned before, there are gates or prerequisites before it can even be a possibility, is mostly a technological one, insofar as 3D printing revolutionized the world, right? I believe that 3D printing will do the same for manufacturing in the very near future. Now, we're not there yet. We need to be able to have 3D printers that are faster, that scale better, although that is already a thing. I know there's 3D printers that are able to go on location and use resources on site in order to form, I believe it's concrete or something similar to concrete, and then build a building from it. Like, that's pretty awesome. But that needs to become more widespread. And we need also to have 3D printers that can print more than one material. Right now it's mostly just plastic, and don't get me wrong, plastic is great, but I don't think that there's anyone up here in Canada who wants to build a house purely out of PVC, right? That's not gonna survive very long in this climate. So we need, again, multi-element 3D printers. We need scalable 3D printers, and we need it all to be widespread and faster. So we also need a way to reverse 3D print to break down compound elements into their components. I believe that at first that doesn't necessarily need to be something that's doable at the individual scale. It could be sort of a communal thing. Kind of, everyone gets access for an hour to the forge every week or whatever, and they can. No, girls. No. Always with the wanting to sniff the garbage on the street, huh? So, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Mr. and Daisy. Yeah, so you can have access to the forge and melt down all. Anyway, it can be a communal thing at first, but then can be melted down to the delegated down to the individual level as technology further progresses. I don't think that one is fully necessary, because if you think about it, once you break down the components once into a material, hopefully you break it down into a material, let's say like carbon nanotubes, graphite, blah blah blah, and then you're able to then take that element and reprint it, right? You don't need to re-break it down a second time when you want to repurpose whatever you had 3D printed at first. So anyway, that's the technological hurdle. But once we've reached there, and there's another one, I guess, but that one will happen, I think, even sooner, which is AI and robots taking over manual or trivial jobs. There is no reason why you still need a human working at McDonald's. That's been proven. There are burger chains right now out there that have robots that cook and that serve. Pretty soon that's going to expand to plumbing, and then eventually medicine. Right? A robot their hand will never shake. They're never going to lose attention for a split second. They're never going to be hungover from the night before. They're never going to forget a diagnosis. So, yeah. Doctors are going to get replaced by robots too. And construction workers, lawyers, everything really. Creators. I'm sorry, artists, but what you are doing is the exact same thing as what a neural net can do. And I've talked about it before. Not fully, though. I need to re-attack the subject. But, you're not no different from an AI. Or an AI that will be, if not AIs now, very near future AI. At the exponential growth rate of capacity that's related to Moore's Law, or that's a result of Moore's Law. Anyway, again, going down random rabbit holes that I shouldn't. Point is that ideally, robots will take over manual labor and that type of stuff, which will enable everything to be built or to happen, right? Because it's not feasible to expect a human to dig 100-foot hole in any normal amount of time by hand being the key word here, or self-powered, I'll say, in order to create a geothermal well to power his house, right? But a robot could do it pretty fast, and once it's done, right? So anyway, sorry, I'm realizing I'm saying right a lot again. So you need robots, you need 3D printing. Once you have that, really, what's the need for money? Because we use money to exchange our time for goods, right? Or for food. But what happens when you can scrounge up rocks on the side of the road, bring them to the forge to break them down into their components, and then use those components with your 3D printer at home and your robot to build your house from scratch. Whatever design you want, whatever size you want. It just depends how many rocks you accumulate and bring to the forge, right? But they'll build that. When your 3D printer is precise enough, it'll print your phone and your screen and your all of that stuff. So really, there's going to be no reason to go work, because you'll be able to just take whatever you want from the side of the road or wherever it is and build whatever you need with it. And that can perhaps not work if there is too much greed and too much powerful people they'll oppress others. But really, like, there's no technological, no societal, no logical reason why we won't reach a level of society, like we won't reach that level of technology in our society. So we need to be ready for it when it happens, because if not, like, is money gonna still be relevant at that point? It will be during the transition, but again, once you have basically unlimited energy, because you can break down water or whatever, infusion it, and you can 3D print whatever you want, you can get your robots, like you can 3D print the robot that will then be used to, build everything else. So it's all kind of a it's exponential growth, right? It's I'm sorry, I'm looking for the words, but once it starts, it just keeps going and growing and growing, and it feeds on itself as a progress or capacity to build. So that also means that your robot will be able to to build and tend your farm, right? And on your farm, you will have all the LEDs or this or that and climate control, and you'll have the robot tenders, and you will be able to grow all the food that you ever need without even any effort or gardening knowledge, because your robots are going to do it, and they're going to use their AI adaptive neural nets in order to garden the same way or actually more efficiently than any human would. And you won't go hungry again, and you won't need, you won't be cold or need shelter, because you can 3D print whatever house or shelter or whatever else you need at any time. So when you're fed and clothed and sheltered, we're taking care of all of the bottom of Maslow's pyramid with no effort and no need for anyone to work, no need for handouts, no need for anything of the sort. So how does a world that functions on money work in that type of technological setting? I don't think it does. There's going to be no need for money. I know that sounds very utopian, but when you think about it, at that point, there'll be no reason to work a job that you hate in order to earn money that allows you to be fed and sheltered and then go entertain, right? So I'm sure there's going to be a completely different economy, because what's going to matter at that point is perhaps, this is a very Star Trek idealistic type idea, but maybe what's going to matter at that point is reputation and achievements, right? Real life achievements. Maybe that's how the world's going to work. Maybe what's going to be worth, quote unquote, buying is experiences. But even that, at that point, anyone would be able to, I'm sure, travel anywhere because they can 3D print their car, they can fuel it with water, and like, or electricity. However, like if you need to recharge. But the point is that everyone will be able to go anywhere. So it's going to be a completely new way to organize society that will have to come from this. And I think that the only way to do that is to have a government that is organized by issues, not by parties, to link back to that topic. And all the big corporations or old money, or it's not going to hold, it shouldn't hold any power like it does right now, because no one's going to need to work for them, and the money that they have doesn't really give them anything, any extra, or like, well, it won't be worth anything when you think about it, because everyone will be able to will be able to satisfy their needs with no need for money. It's kind of like, anyway, I won't go down that path. I don't think I'll have time to talk about the transition to that system before we end the walk for today. That'll be a future episode. So to stay in that ideal technological system, maybe what's gonna be important. Oh, and the other thing that should disappear is all the need for, scams and get rich quick schemes and extortion and taking advantage of others and this and that. I know I'm being very idealistic at this point, but when you think about it, there's gonna be no need for that, really. Trying to untangle the leashes, and I finally dropped one. That's what happened. That's also one of the reasons why I tend to and this and that a lot, because I'm constantly having to monitor the girls, try to untangle them. It's, anyway, multitasking. Like, Daisy, go! Ah! Anyway. I'm not sure if I'm justifying all of these points and these positions well enough, but hopefully you can see why, at least in one world, that could be possible if we have access to those types of technology, right? And if people mature a little bit more and start to increase their in-group a little bit wider, to the point where it includes everyone, and hopefully, as I've said, that's even further, everything on the planet or the cosmos. But that's really idealistic. Yeah, so maybe what's gonna be worth something at that point is someone who creates good art, or someone who comes up with a new patent, or this or that. Even this, I'm having, a little bit of doubt, because when you think about it, once we reach that point, AI will have far surpassed our intellect, and it's very unlikely that even artists or scientists are still humans. Because our AI overlords will have far outpaced us. Hopefully they are our AI overlords. They are not our AI overlords, and they actually become our AI tools, but that I can't, no one knows the future. I'm assuming that at least AI will allow us to continue to exist when it reaches that point. It can't be stopped. The singularity will happen if it hasn't already. Well, that's really off topic. But anyway, so yeah, I don't really know. Like I said, I think maybe patents or this or that, creative work, that type of stuff. Maybe there'll be sports and human achievements, right? But at that point, we'll probably also have enough genetic engineering that humans will be able to install mods that allow them to jump 10 feet high if they want to, or run the 100-meter dash in 4 seconds, right? And is there any achievement if what you're able to do is a result of genetic engineering? I don't know. Anyway, that's something for future ethicists to discuss, because as I said, there is no moral objective truth, I believe. We need to adjust our expectations, because we will always discover something new that we hadn't thought of before and that will not fit in our ethical molds. And even if we don't, all of our ethical ideas are pre-biased by our origins. I've talked about that in another episode. I'll just finish this by saying I don't know what that economic system will look like. I know I just described kind of a utopia, but my point is that that world will no longer be plagued by scarcity. And scarcity is the origin of all of our value systems, monetary exchanges, etc. Once there's no scarcity, there's no need for money. There's not even need for trade when you think about it. So that changes everything, and I don't think that enough or any philosophical or political thought has been given to that reality, which I think is inevitable and probably closer than you think. So let me know if any of this makes sense, or am I completely crazy and bonkers, as Daisy isn't moving forward at all. And yeah, leave your comments down below. Tomorrow or soon, because tomorrow I might be driving to Montreal, but next episode I believe I will talk about possible transition steps from today's economy to that idyllic system. Well, Daisy really doesn't want to keep going. I think we're done, so let's wrap it up. Yeah, tomorrow or the next episode, I will be discussing what I think are possible transition steps to get there. Thanks for listening, and have a good evening.